bodies, our choice. Our 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 bodies, our choice.
Okay, we're going to have more chanting and we're going to want to hear all of you. On behalf of the organizing group, and I want everybody to stand, Susan Galuzzo, raise your hand, Patricia Rowell, Priscilla McCord, Alex Lang, and Maureen Jerome. We are thrilled to see so many of you here today to speak up for a woman's right to control her body and make her own decisions. And I'm particularly delighted to see so many men in this group. Because, as we always say, women's rights are human rights, and it affects everyone. So thank you to all our friends. I want everyone today to know that you are part of a powerful movement. The marches and rallies today are being supported by a broad coalition of women's advocacy groups, including Planned Parenthood, Narrow Pro-Choice America, Emily's List, the Center for Reproductive Rights, and over 50 other organizations. Today, at over 600 venues in all 50 states, women and men are protesting Texas Law SB 8 and letting politicians know that we will not sit back and watch our constitutional rights destroyed.
No, we won't!
We are mobilizing and defending our reproductive rights. Oops, we lost a paper. I want to thank our organizing group and so many members of this community who offered to help and pitched in to make today happen. A special thanks to Robert Levenstein of Sharon Playhouse, who brought the sound system. Thank you. To the White Hart Inn, which is letting us use their power source. And to the Lakeville Journal and Rural Intelligence and the media, which have been reporting on this march. Today, we want to harness your energy and your anger over the abortion restrictions that are sweeping this country. Abortion is health care, plain and simple. It is a constitutional right that was established in 1973 when the Supreme Court decided Roe versus Wade, freeing American women from back alley abortions. I know many of you were born after 1973. And you don't know, well, maybe not that many of you, not us, but you don't know that many people and many young people in this country don't realize there was a time when we didn't have safe, legal, and accessible abortions. But we are in danger and we need to have our voices heard. Today we will have speakers illuminate different aspects of this issue. We will raise our amazing signs, and I love the signs. You guys did a great job. We will chant. We will hope for a future where reproductive freedom still exists in America. Now, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce Reverend Heidi Truax, the rector of Trinity Episcopal Church in Lime Rock. Reverend Truax is a graduate of the Yale Divinity School and has been in this community since 2009. She is a mother of 4, a grandmother of 8, and a staunch supporter of women's rights. Thank you, Heidi.
Good afternoon. We are all here today from many different backgrounds and different traditions as well. What a joy it is to be here with you. And we're here for a united purpose, to support women's reproductive rights. And I am personally from the tradition of the Episcopal Church. I believe in God who, in Holy Scriptures, both Hebrew and Christian, have shown me that we are deeply loved. We are individuals. We are people who laugh together, cry together, and sometimes struggle together. And we care about each other. God created us to be happy, healthy, free. In Hebrew scriptures, we hear Moses, Isaiah, Jeremiah, all of them. They tell the people of God that, yes, we have been given commandments, yes, but what God most wants for us is to write those commandments on our hearts. We are to love one another. In Christian scripture, time and again, we are pointed to God's own Jesus as the one who is God with us. We see this Jesus speaking to the blind, the lame, and women. In that day and age, men did not speak to women by themselves. And yet, Jesus was found speaking to the Samaritan woman at the well. And so we are here, and we're asked by our higher power to see each other, and to have compassion and respect for individuals. God asks us to have compassion. We have freedom, and we have charge of our own bodies. That is what God feels is important. I know this, and yet, when it came to my own life and my own situation, I was really worried about what my church would say. About 6 years ago, I realized that my marriage had fallen apart. There was nothing to be done about it, except walk out the door and file for divorce. I was very upset, and I was worried about how the church and my bishop would react to this news. I knew that this is what I had to do, and yet I had made vows before God and to my husband that only death would part us. And didn't I promise to take care of him in sickness and in health? So it was with trepidation that I made a phone call to my bishop, and I told him of my situation, and I braced for his reply. He said, "Heidi, sometimes vows come to an end. We all live in unique situations, and for you needed to leave your husband and seek what God wants for you: health, happiness, and freedom." I was so relieved and grateful to hear these words from this man of deep faith. And now I truly understand God's compassion, God's loving nature, and that God cares about each individual, each one of us.
Hello, man, what a great crowd. Thank you for coming out. This is really, really fabulous. A huge clap for all of you. Anyway, it is my distinct pleasure. Do I spit in it?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Yes. Sorry, guys. Anyway, it is my distinct pleasure as the one of the co-chairs of the Women's Support Services to introduce and welcome our former chair and my dear friend and neighbor and our state representative, Maria Horn. Thank you, Ellen.
Hello, everyone. So first thing I'm going to do when we get started is I'm just amazed and impressed by the number of people who are here today. And I was at another event earlier this morning in Kent, which also had a huge crowd. It is really an impressive moment. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, sometimes in Hartford they refer to us as the quiet corner. And I'm going to want you all to get a little loud because we're going to need to. So we are here precipitated by, as others said before, by this SB 8, this Texas law. And we live in this beautiful part of Northwest Connecticut. Why do we care about a law that just got passed in Texas? For a few reasons. And the first thing I want to focus on is the absolute insidiousness of this particular law.
Yeah.
Which turns vigilante justice. In order to evade a blatantly, plainly, obviously unconstitutional law, it creates a system of vigilante justice, which means that a woman at this moment, when she has to make a decision under time pressure, is meant to be deprived of her entire support structure. Her doctor, her friends, her neighbors, a taxi driver, anyone who just might even want to talk to her and help her through that moment is meant to turn their back and walk away. I'm sure many of you have been in a position when a friend has come to you just for advice, regardless of what your own personal position is on it, just to ask them to, ask you for some help in this moment. And when you are a friend, you do that. This law says no more to that. We don't care about your personal friendships. We're going to turn you against one another. That is grotesque. And it was done with the express intent of evading the obvious unconstitutionality of this law. And so the other thing I want to talk about, among other things, is another reason why this is important is because the Supreme Court allowing this law to stay in place in Connecticut is a harbinger of things to come, which is why many of these organizations here are here today. Because of its obvious unconstitutionality, the Supreme Court being willing to just let it stay is an indication of what's around the bend, which is why it's really important for us to be here today. So in Connecticut, we have, thanks to Democratic majorities and a Democratic governor, we codified Roe v. Wade. And I'm just going to read to you what the statute says so that you know this. Connecticut General Statute, Section 19A 602A says, the decision to terminate a pregnancy prior to the viability of the fetus shall be solely that of the pregnant woman in consultation with her physician. So Connecticut has actually taken that a step further and also made it sure that anybody seeking abortion services in our state is guaranteed safe and legal abortion regardless of their insurance coverage. And it's really important to note that because we are all privileged to be able to be here today on this beautiful Saturday afternoon standing up for our rights. But really, what this is all about the women who can't be here, who already have, multiple children and can't afford another one, can't get transportation, work 3 jobs. We're asking them, we're putting up huge hurdles in their face so that they cannot exercise that right. So it is incumbent upon us who can to do something about it and to be loud. Now, in Connecticut, it's important just actually for a moment to pause on just the obvious centrality of Roe, because just because Roe goes away doesn't mean abortion goes away. Illegal, unsafe, lethal abortion was very much a thing before Roe. And if Roe goes away, it will come back and be with us. I'm seeing many signs around here, hearkening back to 1973, like, are we really still talking about this? But that is an important thing to remember. This isn't an anti-abortion, because abortion will not go away. It's an anti-safe, legal abortion. So, in terms of going forward, what we all need to pay attention to, Connecticut, we have this law. We're very proud of it, and are strong majorities in Connecticut supporting that, as there are, by the way, strong majorities throughout the country. Over 60% of the people in this country think that abortion should be legal, some or all of the time. Most or all of the time. But in Connecticut, the same laws that you see proposed in terms of not just abortion, but voting rights, are being proposed in Connecticut every day. So we are not safe. What happens in Connecticut, because we have Democratic majorities and Democrats like me control the committees, those bills don't get aired and they don't prevail. But make no mistake, this is just a law. And if we don't get out there and vote at every opportunity, there's going to be another law. So we absolutely have to pay attention to that. I'll close with, we're all out here. So I've had so many conversations both in Kent and here today about, hearkening back to moments of, marches and what marches can do for you. And many of you are wearing talismans of earlier marches. I am wearing my OG Women's March from January of 2017. And these really can be catalysts for action. And I know a lot of people, there's been a lot of articles written recently about how we're a little burned out after the 2020 election and everybody needs a little bit of a break. But break time is over. and it's time to get out whatever symbols you have at home, the posters from the 70s, the t-shirts. I am wearing my mother was, as many of you know, a Republican feminist. That was a thing. So I'm wearing her wedding band. I'm wearing my t-shirt from the march, the things that remind me of the tradition, the shoes that I'm walking in. And so we all have to make sure that we get out there and support Planned Parenthood and other pro-choice organizations, NARAL, all of them that are active in the state of Connecticut and throughout the country. Make sure that we make a lot of noise, that we vote every time, that you ask your candidates where they stand on this issue. Make them be quite clear with you, because this is very much on the ballot, in the agenda in every upcoming election. So thank you all for making the effort to be out here today, and it's such a privilege to see so many noisy people in the quiet
Together we rise, divided we fall.
Together we rise, divided we fall. Together we rise, divided we fall. Together we rise, divided we fall. Together we rise, divided we fall.
Okay, does this work? Okay. Hold it tight. Okay. Close. Okay. This is a rally in the first instance in support of Roe versus Wade. And before I introduce my friend Larry Rand, to speak about the current state of the law under Roe, it is important to touch ever so briefly on how we got here. Because one, it didn't happen by chance. Two, a woman made it happen. And three, that female lawyer practiced law and was from Canaan, Connecticut. If you've ever driven through Canaan, you may have noticed a small white building with a sign in front of it that says Catherine Rohrbach, attorney at law. In the pantheon of great women in America, this quiet, calm, passionate woman with a razor-sharp legal mind stands tall. The sole woman in her 1948 law school class at Yale. Her former professor there remembered her
and called and asked her in 1958 to help him with the case for a woman named Estelle Griswold, then executive director of Planned Parenthood League in Connecticut, and Lee Buxton, an obstetrician at Yale, were involved in the case. At that time, Connecticut was the only state in the country that not just outlawed the sale of contraceptives, but outlawed the use of them as well. Fast forward to 1961, when Griswold and Buxton opened a Planned Parenthood clinic in New Haven, and did just that. They challenged this law. As a result of that, they were arrested, and they wanted to be arrested. Catherine Rohraback defended them and took their case, which became known as Griswold versus Connecticut, all the way up through the Connecticut Supreme Court, and then into the U.S. Supreme Court, where she sat basically second chair to an attorney named Harper. And so Catherine was in it all the way. It is in this case, Griswold versus Connecticut, that the Supreme Court found, quote, a right to privacy had never been held before as a constitutional right in this country. And what they did, in fact, they extended the protection of the Constitution and constitutional liberties into the realm of human sexuality. Another aside with regard to Catherine, because she is such a tremendous person, I would imagine there would maybe be about 1% of the people here who even knew who she was. I had the privilege of practicing with her for a couple of years, was that post Roe versus Wade, she represented 1,850 plaintiffs with regard to defending their rights to an abortion. She was a giant. So to see where this groundbreaking case has led and the state of Roe versus Wade, I want to introduce my friend Larry Rand, who's been up here 1 year longer than I have. That's kind of sad, but he's been up here 50 years. Larry was an educator and head of the history department at Kent School, where I'm going to say his specialty, but he basically has become a scholar in constitutional law and currently teaches a course over at the Taconic Learning Center. So what he has to say is from the heart, not only from the heart, but also from his head.
Thank you, Susan, for your introduction. I'm here to encourage you all to stay focused and to stay involved in the struggle to preserve and expand women's rights, to save the United States Supreme Court from itself, and to save our democracy. As law professor Stephen Vladek said to Congress on Thursday of this past week, a world in which our constitutional rights are nothing more than the whims of 50 state legislatures is not a federal system. It's not a system with the rule of law. And frankly, it's not a system that's going to be sustainable in the long term. Our nation and our system of government are based on the principle of democracy. But what is democracy? Abraham Lincoln had it right when he spoke in Gettysburg of a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That was 1863. Today we have a government that is increasingly of the few, by the few, and for the few. And we have a Supreme Court that is out of touch with the will of the people. Nowhere is this more evident than in its recent decisions regarding abortion. As Susan said, in Griswold versus Connecticut, the court established the right to privacy in marital relations. Soon thereafter, it extended that right to relations between unmarried couples, and then, in Roe v. Wade in 1973, to a woman's right to terminate her pregnancy. In its decision, the court used a trimester approach. A state could place no restriction on a woman's right during the first trimester of her pregnancy. It could impose reasonable health regulations during the second trimester, and it could prohibit abortion in the third trimester except when the life of the mother was endangered by her pregnancy. Almost immediately, after the Roe v. Wade decision, the federal and state governments began their effort to restrict the right the court had just recognized. And in a series of cases from 1989 through 2020, the Supreme Court allowed the states to chip away at abortion rights without overturning Roe v. Wade. This year, as you've heard, Texas enacted SB 8, a statute authorizing any person in the United States to bring suit against an abortion provider or anyone assisting a woman seeking an abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy. The statute replaces the rule of law and state liability with a system of vigilante enforcement and a $10,000 bounty to anyone who brings suits and wins. The Supreme Court, which should have issued a temporary injunction suspending the law's enforcement until the case could be heard, instead issued a 5-4 ruling from what is known as its shadow docket, allowing the law to stand without oral argument. As a result, women in Texas whose pregnancy is beyond 6 weeks have no access to licensed abortion providers without going out of state. I might add that the state of Oklahoma, in the month before SB 8, had 4 women from Texas come for abortions in Oklahoma. In the month after, 150 plus. As I said earlier, the current Supreme Court majority is out of touch with the popular will. As you've heard, well over 60% of Americans support a woman's right to terminate her pregnancy. Our Constitution cannot endure as a living document if its interpreters defy the will of the people. And that is why it is now up to us to act and to elect representatives who will ensure that our government is the one that President Lincoln described in Gettysburg. I firmly believe that we can and will put our nation on the right track, but only when we have as many women in Congress and state legislatures as we do men. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you to our wonderful speakers, Reverend Truax. Thank you. Oh. Maria Horn. Okay. Yes. I think today we have to be honest about what we are talking about. And I think we need to use the A word. So let's talk about abortion. Abortion is not a dirty word. It is a routine medical procedure for millions of women. Can you hear me now? Okay, let's talk about abortion. It is not a dirty word. I'm going to start there. And I think part of the issue is the demonizing of that word. It is a routine medical procedure for millions of women in America. In fact, 1 out of 4 American women will have an abortion before they are 45. That's 25% of the female population. My favorite sign slogan today is, "Someone you love has had an abortion." We all know that to be true. As we've said, over 60% of Americans support a woman's right to choose whether to proceed with a pregnancy or to terminate. There are a lot of misconceptions about who gets an abortion. About 51% of women who get abortions report that they were using some form of birth control. So abortion is not used as alternative birth control. 59% of women seeking abortions are married and have children, and they have fulfilled their family planning, and they do not have the capabilities, the resources, or for whatever reason to expand their family further. Abortion is simply part and parcel of a woman's lifetime health care. Around the world, even the most Catholic countries, such as Ireland, Italy, Argentina, and Mexico, have legalized abortion. As this progressive global trend continues, the United States is looking to the past, and state legislatures are trying to move us back to the dark days of illegal, backroom, and dangerous abortions. And in the state of Texas, they will say that they have filed in their briefs that they are not banning abortion, that people can just go out of state to get an abortion. But who pays for that? Who transports these women? What about the young women? What about the girls who can't tell their parents? What about people who have children at home? It belies the entire issue to think that everyone has the option to pick off and go to Oklahoma or fly to California, New York, or Connecticut. Once again, this burden will fall disproportionately on lower income women, women of color, Native, Indigenous people, and again, injustice will grow in the United States. If the U.S. Supreme Court overturns or guts Roe versus Wade in the fashion of Texas, at least 26 states are certain or likely to ban abortion. For example, my own state, which is Florida, has an SB 8-style bill already pending before the state legislature. And why you have to be afraid, even if you are in a solidly Democratic state, and luckily Connecticut has done such a wonderful job, is I always try to reconcile Florida, which voted twice in presidential elections for Barack Obama, and we now are at the lead in fringe right-wing policies. So be careful. It can happen. It can happen anywhere. The first shot to overturn Roe versus Wade is coming up this December, when the court hears the Mississippi case that seeks to directly overturn Roe versus Wade in its entirety. We should be very frightened by that case. The decision will come in the late spring or summer. So the question is, as Maria Horn said and others said, what can you do? Well, of course, you can vote for candidates who support your positions. Another thing, you can contact politicians, not just in your jurisdiction, because I know most of you are blessed to live in states that support abortion rights, but contact these senators in other states and let them know that you object. They keep track of this information, and they need to know what the political will is. You can donate to various organizations that are funding this fight. And I want to just point out, see that green table there? We have a wonderful list called What to Do Next. And it lists all kinds of organizations that you can donate to, and including funds that are specifically set up to fund women in Texas who need money to get to another state to get a safe, legal abortion. So please stop by that table and get that list. And finally, you can do what you're doing today. Standing up in public, making your voice heard, and insisting that our democracy reflect the will of the people to keep abortion safe, legal, and accessible in America. Thank you, everybody, for coming today.